Okay. See, hopefully it's recording now.
Okay, let me get this off. Okay, so this thing is totally this mlastro.com spectroheliograph based on the long time design that we've had on Solarchat that you can 3D print from Christian Buell. Is still out there, and he's going through round 2 of selling these things. It's a really cool device. But when you actually set it up, this is a shared screen here. It's really totally different than we're used to. So you get your camera going on the device. You've got to focus it about 10 different ways, and you got to pray to the sun god that something works right. But anyway, when you actually start capturing, you use the region of interest to get just tiny down on above and below the hydrogen alpha absorption line, which contains the hydrogen alpha emission line, which is what you're actually imaging. So you press record, and then you manually, or using a computer, move the telescope or move the sun through the field of view. And this is what it actually looks like when you're recording it. That's the sun, the limb of the sun entering the slit, and you're imaging the slit. And that's the hydrogen alpha absorption line there in the center. And you can even go thinner than this to where that's the only thing visible if you wanted to. And then that's the sun's full width of the disk. And then in a minute, you'll see it get smaller and smaller as you get to the other side of the sun. And those black vertical lines showing up are dark features on the sun's chromosphere that you're imaging. And I just think it's really cool. And it's going to go backwards here, and you'll see it come in again. And you just keep doing this back and forth, back and forth. And that's what you're imaging. And what are you trying to focus? Well, let me show you. Can you guys see my mouse pointer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on the edges here, this is not focused. And I'm working with it because it'll be in focus at one point and not in focus at the other point. So I'm still trying to figure all these details out. But this is focused close enough to get a pretty good image. But this edge here is is something you have to focus using one of the calipers on the device. And then these vertical lines right here going through, these are either dust bunnies on your slit or solar features, and they have to be perfectly focused also. Okay. And then the third thing you have to focus is the actual hydrogen alpha line. And that's about as focused as I can get it with the crappy refractor that I'm using, although it's not a bad refractor. It's just, I don't know enough about it to get it perfect yet. But when you do this, you're just sitting there with the hand controller, and I use 16x sidereal speed. So I use speed number 4 on my Celestron mount. And it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you record a video with each pass. And I think it's just really, really cool. And I'll show you how this J Solex software, which is absolutely incredible. It was written by another French guy. Yeah, so that's really cool. But let me show you, I'll try to share this other screen if I can. Okay, stop share. Okay, I'm going to share another screen. Hang on. Okay, so this is my window on my Mac desktop. And what you get after you open the J Solex software, which is free, and you run this SER file through it, is you get a log with the information about what you did. You get some raw finished images, which sometimes are better than others. Okay, and then you get a bunch of processed images from the software, and the software does all this without you doing anything. This is the result after you run the scan through the software. So, well, you can't really see that very up close, but you can see it's a nice, fluffy, cool image, which is out of focus, but can be fixed. But the J Solex also generates this image from it, which is way, off band. It's more of a white light disc almost, or a calcium disc, but this is all from one scan. And it gives you this, which is a very handy thing that attaches to the globe. And it also aligns your image with north based on the current images that it gets from the internet. So it will align your image north-south for you. It gives you a Steven Ramsden patented colorized orange image. It gives you a blank, disc. It gives you this other thing, which I don't know what it is. It gives you a Doppler shifted limb image that it derives from the scan. It gives you this Doppler diagram of the motion of the sun during the scan, or the motion of the Earth, or the combined motion between the two of you, which shows the longer and the shorter wavelengths that actually occurred during your scan. Puts them all together into a somewhat crappy but usable limb and disc image. Gives you this inverted image, gives you a limb image by itself, and it even labels some of the events that are currently going on in the sun. So all this is done in about, I'm using a 10-year-old iMac to do it, and it generates all these images and finishes your scan in about a minute, less than 1 minute. So let me see if I can find another wavelength, and I won't take too long with this, but yeah. So here's a really out of focused calcium image I took. But let me see if I can do this and then share the calcium wavelength with you, and then I'll be done. But I wanted everybody just to see my progress so far. Yeah, here's the video of the calcium K line close to center in there. And here's all the other lines, mostly generated by iron. But it's imaging this 393.4 nanometer wavelength, same manner. As you can see, it's not focused quite right just yet. And I'm sure Pedro can verify, and the rest of you have used this thing. It is not easy to get it perfect. And the other thing is, you don't really have any feedback when you're trying to focus, except you're looking at these lines. You don't have an image of the sun to go, oh, that prominence is not right. You really have to get used to this thing and used to what's going to cause a good image and what's going to cause a bad image. But that's what you're actually taking a video of when you're using this device. And I'll tell you, I really think that that this is going to evolve sooner than later into some type of C-star setup for the sun, because there's nothing in here that requires you to do anything really except point it at the sun. Other than the focus, which can be automated, there's really nothing that you do while it's doing this, and it generates a finished solar image for you immediately. In fact, the JSolX has a feature on it called Watch Directory, where anytime you take a new scan, it keeps track of the directory, and whenever a new file is added, it just immediately processes it and shows you the finished image without you doing anything. So it's also got some batch files in there to do time lapses, stacking, mosaics. I mean, whoever wrote that software really had it together. And if you haven't been over to this guy's website, which I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, because most of you are very familiar with this and know more about it than I do. But this guy, Min in Vietnam, he's a very nice fellow, has a really fantastic website that's got tutorials and everything you'd ever want to know about this device, all spelled out on the site. And look at these photos, man. Look at the stuff that comes out of this thing. And that's absolutely amazing. I've been imaging the sun for over 20 years now, and these are absolutely fantastic solar images, perfectly done, in my opinion. And I really like the fluffy sort of feel you get from these images. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And if I ever get any good at it, I'll get back with you. Right now, my images look nothing like this, but they are getting better every day.
Stephen?
A question I have for those, that have done this, use it. How do you know you've got the sun centered? Is it just the absorption line you center
You
on
run
your
it through a
screen?
scan, and that you run it through the scan. And if the sun doesn't go outside of those two boundaries, then it's good enough. It doesn't have to be centered. It has to be inside those two vertical boundaries. So you run the sun all the way across the field, and if it leaves those boundaries at any time, then it's not centered.
Can I comment also?
Please.
Well, Michael also uses this, is here, but two or three comments. I think you are using a white scan. You should reduce it to, I don't know, 50, 100 pixels. It's too white, the thing you showed. And it's most in focus, because the first thing you have to focus is the spectrum. This is the first thing. And then you have to try to focus the edge of the sun. And that's the difficult part. So whenever I do this, I always try to focus the best I can, but I don't have all the speeds on my mount, so I only have 2 times and 150 times. That's the EM 400 of Takahashi. So I have to use another mount. I used a small mount, a Skywatcher GTI, but it's not ideal. But I also have the same problems. It's not easy to focus. And if you have any dust on the slit, that's not a problem. You can blow it out, and the image will come out okay. And another thing I use is it's filters. You should use an H alpha filter with 7 nanometers or something. That helps, because if you are using a bad telescope, or if it's not an apochromatic telescope, you should use a filter. And my feeling is that it's too wide. The thing that you showed us, the SAR file, so it should be smaller, not as wide as I think you had something like 400 pixels. It should be less, 50 or 100. I use normally 100. I don't know what Michael did a fantastic image with a Paramount, but I'm not using my Paramounts to do that. But it was really very good, fantastic. But the Paramount is it's the high end mount. So, but anyway, it's not easy.
No.
I used it
Well,
more
it
to
is
run
easy. It's just totally different. It's
yeah,
completely
it is
foreign
different.
to all of
It is
us.
different.
Yeah.
And it changes a lot if you are using H alpha or H beta or calcium.
Right.
The focus changes a lot. Calcium
Right.
is
Right.
and you should use, for instance, with calcium, you have to use more light, and with H alpha, less light.
Right.
The switch, the how do you say, the line should be darker, and with calcium, no, you have to. It's totally
Right.
different. But anyway, it's I'm still I'm using it for more than 1 year, and I'm still having problems. I don't know.
I'm with you. I totally understand it now. And
Question
it's
for
totally
both of
foreign. It's
you.
just completely different, man. It's completely
Yes.
different than what we're used to doing.
All good
Stephen.
information for people who are waiting for theirs to come in the next batch. Thank you.
Good. Good. Good.
Bill?
What size scope are you folks using?
It calls for a refractor with less than 700 millimeters focal length, and it,
But
according to
but
men,
your-
it doesn't
your-
really.
Yeah, but your scope in particular, what size are you?
It's an 82
using?
millimeter doublet from Skywatcher and Evo Star.
If you want to
not-
have
not-
if you want to have the whole sun, the whole disk, with the Solex, you cannot go over 400 millimeters in focal length. So if you do that, you won't have the whole disk. That's what happened with Michael. He had only the only image I saw. But the Solec, it's very flimsy because it's a 3D printer and it moves around.
Right.
It's
This
not the same
device
thing.
made by men is very stable, and
Yes.
it's all metal.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it will accept scopes up to 730 millimeters focal length. And he also has an adapter that he's trying to finish that will allow you to go up to 1200 millimeters in focal length. But I use an 82 millimeter Skywatcher with a focal length of 530 millimeters.
So he
Okay.
sells the whole thing, the optics and the slit and
It's all
everything?
included. It's ready to plug in and go. And it's about
Right.
$800, I think, for the whole kit, including the adapters and whatever. And you got to
That's-
use a camera with very small pixels, 2 micron pixels, like the 178 chip or the 678 chip are ideal for
Yep.
that. You can't use the Apollo M Max with its 9 micron pixels. It just will not work.
That's the one I use, the 178. Yeah,
Right.
that's the one.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I'm
not
really looking-
expensive. That's not expensive because the Solex, it's almost the same price. So
Yeah.
if you buy the whole thing, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Michael,
it's a really attractive unit, and it's nice, man. I mean, it feels solid, and I've dropped it. I'm not the most careful person in the world. You may have figured out, but it's very stable. And I've even had the slit out. I took it out to blow the dust off the other side because I had a big, real fat black line going vertically, and it was definitely a piece of dust. And I took it out and blew it off with an air gun and stuck it back in. And I'm nowhere near you guys' level of patience
you know
and
what? You know what?
engineering skill.
if you have dust, it helps to focus. So don't blow up the
Yeah.
dust.
Well, I tried that, and if I
Yeah.
focus on the dust, it's not in focus. So
Yeah.
the 10th of a millimeter difference between the position of the dust and the slit itself
Exactly.
will cause it to go out of focus. So I've been through the focus on the dust part already. It's very difficult to try to understand what you're supposed to do to get a good image. but it can't be that difficult because, you know, Min's doing it. Min's, you know, he's about the same as us. And there's a bunch of people that are getting
Right.
some really good images out of it. So I look forward to the evolution of this device and to what it's going to become.
It's
How,
interesting. What, Alexandra?
I was just wondering, how do you know which line you're looking at?
And you have to be able to recognize the hydrogen alpha wavelengths from the others because you're using a monochrome camera, so you have no idea what color you're in. It does
Yeah.
have a gauge on the side that if you put it to where it says HA, it's pretty close to HA. There's a gauge that shows you kind of where you are. But if you don't recognize, you know, the calcium K2 line is not easy to pull out of a bunch of lines. You don't really know which one you're imaging. The software,
if you are using JSOLEC, it helps because it has
yeah,
a
the
graph
software
feature.
recognizes the
Yes.
lines. It has some information in it that allows it to determine what line you're doing. In fact, it will tell you what line you're doing in the software. It will automatically recognize it.
Can I share my screen, Alexander?
Oh, okay.
So this is the last one of the last images I took. I think
It's
it was
beautiful,
in. It's not bad. This one is not bad. It's in focus at least. And this is the software. It's not processed with JSOLEX. It's processed with. I think it's. I don't remember his name. The colleague that gave the presentation on the. What
Oh, what, Douglas?
Smith.
Douglas,
Smith.
exactly. I use, there are 3 softwares that you can use. Douglas software, JSOLEX, that's a French guy called Cédric Champeau, and also the INTI software by Valérie Denou. She's the one that started all this. And this is more or less in focus. This is one of my best images so far. So I'm always struggling with focus. And I use a Takahashi FS60 with less than 400 millimeters. I think it's 300 and something millimeters focal length, and that's it. I think the Solex, it's not as good as the Mint spectroheliograph. And by the way, there is a new one called SunScan, and they call it a smart spectroheliograph. So you don't have to do anything; it does everything for you, and it doesn't have any mount, and you have just to position the sun and wait for it to go through the slit, and that's it. And you use a smartphone to control the whole thing. So this is just came out a few months ago. But this is a new way of imaging the sun for sure. It's really nice.
Yeah,
And
the main thing I like about it is that it's perfectly illuminated always across the disk.
Yes.
There's no struggle with uneven sweet spots and all that nonsense. So it's really cool, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it. I would like to be a master at it because I usually can figure stuff out pretty good without reading the instructions, but not this.
You'll get there. You get there.
You really got to understand what's going
more.
on. I'm going to.
Try JSOLEG as a quick session to see if it's in focus. Try that.
Right.
So
that's what I do.
That's the way to do it.
Trouble is, when everything's so automated, you might as well not bother and just have somebody else make the images.
It's really bordering on sissy astronomy here, because that's what I refer to as like these sea stars and stuff. Oh, I'm in my living room, you know, imaging Andromeda. Well, you know, what the hell are you doing that for? I mean, you should be outside enjoying the elements and getting the entire feel of the wonder of the universe. Right. I mean, that's a part of it. That's a part of it, man. I mean, if you throw that part away, you're missing out, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah, freezing or mosquitoes in the summertime.
Exactly. That's what I have here.
I want to feel like I'm part of nature, and you know, sitting in the living room on a smartphone using a sun scan outside is not going to give me that feeling.
So sitting outside, beating off the alligators, the snakes, that makes you feel better.
That's exactly right.
Crocodiles?
That's exactly right. It does. And I like being alone in the dark when I'm imaging outside in a natural environment. To me, it adds a lot to the experience. You know, I don't want to sit inside and press some buttons.
Are you going to try and do the Mars occultation tomorrow night?
I've sworn off nighttime astronomy for at least a month.
It
is so frustrating that I reached a point of maximum frustration about 3 nights ago, and I decided I was either going to throw all this shit in the marsh or just put it away for a month, and I decided to put it away.
So does that mean, Stephen, you've got your Solex coming?
Oh, I've already got it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, there you go. So you're sitting inside watching it, are you?
oh no. I'm outside with the Solex. I mean, I'm sitting out in my observatory tent, which is not heated or cooled.
That works
It
pretty good
does.
though.
It works great. It keeps
Yeah.
the reason I bought it was to keep rattlesnakes from crawling up my leg and to keep the hogs from being able to have immediate access to me. And I still know they're there, and I've seen a bunch of them. I had a fox outside the door the other night, and I've got deer all the time walking by the tent. But I purchased the tent so I would have a little bit of warning before I was approached by a rattlesnake, and that's what it does, and it does it well. It's a little cramped. It provides no comfort whatsoever. But it does prevent the 6 to 8 foot diamondback rattlesnakes from getting in my chair, which
Well,
they
there you
did
go.
before I had the tent. So, yeah. But anyway, I've
Oh,
sworn off nighttime astronomy until I get a little more motivated. I was getting to the point where, oh, you need to get this better camera, and you need to buy this ZWO ASI, or you need to do all this, you need to do all that. It's like, no, I'm not going to do any of that, man. Because the image I got from my DSLR is not going to win any awards amongst the astronomy APOD crew. But I don't care. My interest in it is, what are the people on those planets doing? And look at how beautiful that structure is. It's just unbelievably beautiful to see. And what's going on those planetary systems? What are they thinking about? Are they looking at me? That's what I want to share with my wife, share with my social media people, and I don't care about the rest of it. So whenever I get to the point where I need to spend $10,000 on this better thing, no, it's just going to provide more frustration, really. I want it to be super simple. But anyway, I've sworn off nighttime astronomy for at least a month.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting on the 700 to come, so I'm in the second batch.
Absolutely. You're going to love it. It's a beautiful thing. And it's got a really cool engraved logo on the side of it that I think is really a nice touch. It's just a good looking device too, which is also part of the experience. When you hold an astrophysics refractor in your hand, it's a different experience than when you hold a Tasco refractor in your hand. And this product really captures a lot of that too. It's really cool looking and it feels good. And I like it.
Question for you, Stephen. When you zoom in on the image, how smooth is the edge of the disc? Does it look smooth, like as if it's a natural image, or does it look like it's made up of slices, like page?
Pixelated. Right now, they're pixelated.
Hmm.
It's not a smooth disc edge yet.
Yeah.
And men, every time I do anything with it, this guy wants to Zoom meeting with me from Vietnam. He's taking all this time. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. He's out there imaging or something. He'll call me on Zoom and tell me what I'm doing wrong and try to help and all that stuff.
Because I've been using the Solex, and it's interesting because that looks like the next generation version for pretty much a similar price. And I've been trying it out with a small telescope, 200 something millimeters. And I have, I found that the edge or the disc isn't very smooth. It looks like as if it's made up of slices joined together with no real proper, alignment that, could be better. I did try one image of it in the back of my refractor on the Paramount. That's the one you're referring, Pedro. And that came out very well, but it was just a particular portion of the sun's disk, not the full disk. So I would have thought that having a smaller, focal length, full disk view would be easier, And I think I was discussing this on a previous meeting, and I was concerned that as I was slewing, that maybe it was the error in the mount was causing it to be quite jagged. And I think, Stuart, you had the idea of a previous meeting, why don't I just point it at the sun and actually let the sun pass through? So I was trying that over the last couple of weeks. Now, admittedly, the sun was less than 15 degrees, so it's not ideal time of year. And obviously, it takes a while for the sun to pass through, a bit like the sun scan. So I
3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes.
I kept my frames per second down to something like 7 frames per second, and it was at like 3.5 gig file. But it still wasn't quite as smooth as I was hoping. Maybe if I share my screen, am I able to do that, Alexandra?
Yeah, that's a problem. You have to have a quick, fast image per second. I don't know, something like 50, or if you have only 7, the seeing will be
Well,
really fast.
and maybe that's it. I was afraid of how, 1 second now, I have a lot of icons on the screen here, but like what you had, I think you were referring to earlier. So if I take one of these slightly tweaked ones here, let me know if you can see that.
Yep.
Right.
But that's not bad.
It's yeah, it's not brilliant. Maybe if I show another one that I just tweaked.
That's the same pixelation that I'm getting in all my images too.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's causing it.
And then if I show the Doppler one. But if I go at 100%, you will see it's just not, it's not, now maybe the sun was low and maybe there's turbulence. Because I've tried to like this is not slewed, you know, in the sense, because I suppose, Pedro, what confuses me is that I see the guys there on in the team in France and they're getting fantastic images and they're slewing at 16x or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is 1x essentially. So at 7 frames per second, I should be getting very high amount of data. So I would have thought anyway, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, per vertical line or per vertical row of pixels at 7 frames per second over the course of a few minutes, you know, it's 3 point something gig. I would have thought I was getting plenty data to ensure I'm getting a smooth image. I suppose that's the part of frustration.
Right.
But that,
and it may be in the it may be in the software too. It may just be assembling it with not exactly precisely. But I'm not sure what causes this problem. But Min guarantees me he can fix it with a Zoom meeting if I want to do a Zoom meeting with him. And I'm using 300 frames per second and doing, you know, because JSOLEX software tells you how fast you should be moving your mount and how fast your frames per second should be for the ideal result. And I'm following that, but I'm still getting the same.
You should get a round sun and not a rugby ball, and that's the problem.
Right.
For being round, you have to. JSOLEX will tell you exactly the speed and the number of images.
So this is one of the images. So it's not quite.
That's a rugby.
Yeah.
And that tells you that
not...
you didn't have any. This was with an azimuth mount or equatorial.
This was just with no slowing. This was just pointed static to avoid any risk of an error introduced by the motion of the mount. So
it's not
it's not a finished science, you know. It's not a finished thing, and there's still, you know, I'm excited to be in on it, but it is a little bit frustrating. But you know, it's just a cool thing to be involved with, and I like it. And I get a lot of those too, where it's oblong or whatever. And I don't think the mount cheapness is causing that misalignment and pixelation look. I don't think that's being caused by the mount. I think it's being caused by something else, which I'm not sure of. But man, like I say, he promises he can fix it.
Stephen,
sir,
would it be possible to have Min give us a presentation?
I've asked him several times, and he would love to, except that he doesn't want to get up at 4 a.m. to do it. And I told him, I've got 70-year-old Australians that do it every month, man. I think you can do it. You know, he's in his 30s or 20s or 30s, young guy with a baby girl and a family. So I'm not sure. I am trying to get him to do that, though. I will remind him today.
So just a quick question, Dan, about that pixelation. How critical is it that the camera is perfectly aligned with the slit? So if the camera is rotated slightly one way or the other,
that's very critical.
Yeah,
it's very critical. And what you'll see there is one side of the vertical part will not be focused, and the other side will be focused. It has to be flat. The sensor has to be flat to the surface of the slit.
There is a
it doesn't matter.
There is a bunch of videos from Will. Will has lots of videos, but they are in French, so.
Min has a ton of videos on his website. He's got every single step of this extremely well documented, and it's in English, what he calls Vinglish, which is Vietnamese English, and it's easy to understand. But like I say, I'm used to just grabbing something and throwing it out there and starting to use it and not reading any instructions. You cannot do that with this equipment. You have to listen very carefully and watch all of this to even understand what's going on.
That looks pretty focused, Michael.
It looks
it's not
perfect. It's close, but then again the sun was low. But I have to play with two focusers essentially. One is for the telescope. So And the little refractor I have has a little helical focuser on it, and it can get, quite good focus with it. And then I would focus the telescope, would say, to get the edge right.
Yes.
And then I would use the focuser right next to the camera, that little focuser, to focus particularly on those vertical lines and the horizontal lines. And it might be a little bit of iteration back and forth, but no doubt then, I probably lose it again somewhere when I have to start moving. So I still have work to do, to be honest, to try and
so do I.
get it right.
So I'm just
So
carrying my progress.
just going back to the camera alignment then, how do you ensure that it's perfectly aligned with the slit and that you're not off a bit?
You have to test it. Will explained it very well,
Okay.
but you have to test it without a telescope first. So you have to point the Solex at the sky and then try to move it around and place the camera. And he also says that once it's in focus, you just leave it like that, and it's not. I don't think you have to change focus every time. So.
No,
Well,
you're not
that's just-
supposed to
that's
do
just
anything to
refraction,
that focuser when you're imaging. And that's Ben's got a whole video on that where you just point it at the sun outside. Doesn't even have to be the sun, just point it at the blue sky
Exactly.
and focus on the slit and then leave it alone. Leave that focuser alone. I can't leave anything on. So I have tweaked it a little bit, but you're supposed to focus it on the slit before you put it in the telescope. And then
there is a procedure with that Will explains. You have to have a very bright line that you use for focusing outside the spectrum. So it's
well, you can go to the zero order image.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's it.
right.
But what
It
I
is fun to do
find,
though. It's fun.
what I find, and I think, as I understood from the Solex videos, is that because the light is refracted slightly different focus points, that especially if you go to the calcium end, the blue end, it will be shifted, and then you do have to take it out of that position. I find anyway.
Of course.
Yeah, well, you're changing the focus on your telescope for that, but not the focus on the slit, because the slit is not moving no matter what wavelength you're on. The camera to slit distance is the same all the time. So you're supposed to focus that and then leave it alone, and then focus your telescope or collimate the other micrometer to improve
the first procedure is focus the spectrum and then the scope.
That's exactly right.
To do it.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
So do you change the region of interest? Do you make the actual region a slit, as it were, as opposed
to you are supposed to. You are supposed to. And like Pedro said, mine may not be too big or so, I don't know. But when I first started, I was just imaging the whole thing, and it was like a 30 gig file.
And that width there, as you said, Pedro, I know I made it that width initially to get myself centered. And to answer your question, I think, Alexandra, when you're in the region of H alpha line, the H alpha one is by far the widest, darkest band. So it'll no problem seeing it. It's easy to identify. Once you get used to the other lines, like the sodium doublet, once you're in the right ballpark, again, the Solex has a little scale on the side. The calcium ones are a bit harder because they're quite a different focus and they're very much at the other end. But I should have really cropped to probably taken 75% off of that and just kept more of a band directly around it. I don't think it does any harm, Pedro, per se, other than just using up data and maybe reducing your frame rate. I don't think
it's pretty incredible that the Solex software could accept my entire frame video or my tiny little ROI video and still produce the same result.
Yeah.
It just took 40 minutes with the entire frame and 30 seconds with the region of interest. And also the region of interest allows you to increase your frame rate up to 400 or 500 frames per second with the camera, which is, required at certain speeds.
That's more like it. Yeah.
So this is one of my scans, H alpha. So you can see it's moving very slow, and it will take something like 2 minutes. So, but you can see that the edge is more or less in focus. So this is a SER file.
Yeah.
So this is, you can see all the things here, the
features,
features at the sun, exactly. And this produces a very nice, and you have all these discs. This is from Douglas software. You can see here. But then again, this is a Rigby format. So you should have a circular sun. This is not okay. And you have all this information. So And also the way that the line is detected, and there is a polynomial fit. And this is Douglas software, but JSOLX, I think it's better. You can use all this. So let me see if I have. You have three different things here. You have the Douglas software. I think this is the one. Yes. Solar disk reconstruction. So you can use the SER file, and it does everything for you. And you'll see that this is not a circular sun. So this is similar to JSOLX, but I prefer to use this software. As you will see, this is not circular, it's a rugby ball. But as you will see, it will produce at the end 3 solar disks, and it's very nice. So this is the one I use all the time. It's not bad. This is more or less in focus. But then you have all this rugged part of the disk, and that's the thing that I'm struggling with still.
Yeah, me too. And like the main difference here with the Min version is that it's pre-assembled and it comes in a box and you stick it in your telescope. And the previous version was 3D printable files that you had to print and put together yourself, which made it a no-go for me because I have hands like a butcher. And so hopefully the sun scan will even get rid of that part of it too, but we'll see.
Now you have to put it together also. So and the Solex, you
is
have
it
to do
3D
everything
printable?
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, 3D printable is going to eliminate 99.9% of the market for the product. And
Right.
that's just because Americans are dumb and we don't want to waste our time learning anything. We want immediate gratification. It must taste good and be cheap. Am I right, Sean Johnson? No
By the way, I missed Sean in Portugal because he was sick. So anyway, we didn't
I
meet.
know that
That's
was sad. I've been looking forward to meeting up for the
Next
entirety
time.
of planning the trip. Yep, well, there'll be a next time.
okay.
Pedro
Perfect.
is a lot of fun to hang out with. Pedro is a great deal of fun.
Question I have.
He looked perfect in a conquistador outfit. If he had a suit of armor like a conquistador, Pedro, that's what he was born to do. You just tell him.
Right.
Brian, you had a question?
Yeah, the question I have, it's been mentioned where you focus the slit camera assembly and you shouldn't have to touch that. How sensitive is that to temperature change? Because if I get it all set up perfectly, should I get one in
I don't know.
and it's plus 25, and then I go out and use it today and it's minus 35, am I going to have to shelve it for the winter or have to go through every
It's not
5
difficult to
degree temperature
refocus it.
change? No, but is it stable within a 5 degree temperature swing or?
Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you, man. Depends on what it's made of, I guess.
You have to focus all the time. So it's the same with our solar thing. Normally I do 5 videos and then I focus 5 more videos and that's it. So
Yeah, no, I agree the telescope focus is going to change, but I wasn't sure whether the constructed box, once you had all the spacings correct, I can't see how temperature change is going to slightly change the spacing between the slit and the camera and that sort of thing.
if it's metal, it will change. A 3D print, I don't know. Maybe not so much.
Yeah.
If it were me, Brian, I'd be nice and warm in the house rather than out with the scope. I don't know how you do it, mate. I really don't.
I've already said that if I skip the minus temperatures, that's half the year gone. Oh well.
Not much to do up there except drink and have sex, is
it? Are you stacking your images? Because you know the way now I've only ever done a single scan, so I haven't done multiple to do stacking. But you haven't done that yet, Stephen, have you?
I have not, but it is automated in the JSLX, and this Min he's really taken it to the extremes, and there's a lot of examples of the different things you can do. He put up an entire like a full, I don't know what it was, must have been a week or something of rotation of the sun. It was just wonderful, man. It was just really breathtaking to watch. And it can be done. And Min is not a supernatural genius. He's like the rest of us. It's just a matter of using it just like anything else, you gotta get out there and mess with it.
I think the magic in the software.
It is in the software.
There's
You're
magic
exactly correct.
fixes in there somewhere.
it helps
It
to
is
stack.
pretty amazing.
It helps to
Yeah.
stack the images, and
I'm sure it would.
it reduces the noise. I don't know if you know that I have a whole bunch of videos on my website, and this is the. If you go on my website, it will be easy to find, and there are more than 40 videos on this things that are, and with some examples. So it could be interesting to go through this. Most of are not in focus. This one is very good. This in last year, 22.
And did you print this and assemble it yourself, Pedro?
Yes, yes. And I followed Buell instructions, so you have to watch all these videos several times. And no, I didn't print it. I bought a 3D printer, but I assembled it myself. So.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not easy because you have one of the lenses was I mounted not in the right way, so I had to change everything. So it's not easy, but it's a lot of fun. It's really nice. So you have all these videos here, lots of them. So
yeah, I'm to check that out.
Thanks for that, Pedro. I'll be watching that while I'm doing my sissy astronomy.
Sissy. Yeah, this thing came in a box from Vietnam all the way to the Georgia marsh, and the box was maybe an inch wider than the actual unit, and there was no packing in it whatsoever. It was just one little piece of plastic or something. Zero packing in this box, and I really gave him a mouthful about that. So now they're packed properly, but it must have been kicked all over the place on the way from Vietnam to here, but it still worked just fine. So I feel like it's a pretty durable unit.
Is Ken Harrison still active in this? Because
he is.
Yeah, because he was a great advocate for SHG imaging. Presume he still is then. Yeah.
He sent me an email yesterday. I think he's over on cloudy nights more than he is here.
Okay. Right.
But anyway, Alexander, I do appreciate you taking all the time to do these meetings and arranging it for us. So thank you for that. I'm going to have to leave. The wife is telling me it's time for me to leave.
Well,
So,
it is 10 minutes over. So if anybody else has got any other questions, we'll have to put it onto Solarchat instead. But it's been lovely to hear about both Min's SHG and Stuart's.
Yeah, that was cool, man.
Project. It's really great, and it's lovely to see everyone and chat with everyone. I think it's a really lovely thing. And if I forget next month, to remind me.
Second Sunday of each month.
I was starting to wonder, but
well, if anybody else wants to present something in February, do let me know as well. So anyway, I'll let you all go.
All right.
All right.
Take
Bye,
care,
everybody.
take care, everybody.
See you. Cheers, guys.
Bye.